good. Let's talk about real quick then leadership in general, just leadership. I've been in a leadership position my whole life. I ran a couple of $40 million companies as the CEO and COO and president. And so I've just been leading people forever.
Yeah.
What advice would you give the old timers? Can't believe I'm referring to myself like that. The old timers like me who because there's going to be former CEOs like me. I'm just telling you, there will be. They're going to be like, I've been leading people for 35 years. I don't need to there's no framework that's going to teach me anything I don't know. What's your message to those guys and girls?
Yeah, I mean, you could keep going as you are and not get better. Or you could get better. I think it's important to look at the people around you. Take a really, really honest look. And are they flourishing? Are your people, do they love coming in and working every single day? Do your team meetings, are they just abundant with brainstorming and ideas and voices are being spoken? And then, and even I think more telling indicator is, do your people's families flourish? Because we always bring work back home, right? The impact of a leader is so far reaching, more than we realize. Leadership is powerful. And so if you take a really honest look, and I can guarantee you, I mean, unless they're living in the Garden of Eden or something, there's no everybody is not fully flourishing, right? So how do we get better? And it's a lot of what Simon Sinek is talking about too, although we started before he did, before he was really big, by the way, in schools and Columbine. But which Columbine, after the tragedy, we were under that leadership of Frank DeAngelis, and the motto at Columbine was give generously, receive graciously. And that was our genesis in that context. But anyway, it's this concept of how do you win the hearts of the people who follow you? Because they might follow you because of your competence. You're a real competent leader. You have the skills. You can organize and get things done and help them go from point A to point B, which is essentially leadership. How do you move people from A to B? Mm-hmm. But if you can move them from A to B and they have given you their full heart and loyalty and they are in it, they will give extra time. They will give extra energy and effort. Their families will flourish and be behind them. Like, how can we help you do this? Because you are called to this. You find purpose in this. So it's a matter of being okay to being excellent, like that level 5 kind of leaders. So
that's a great answer. That's a great answer. By the way, I knew I was going to ask you that before the podcast. I kind of prepped that question. And that's a great answer. You answered it very well. I was saying to myself, I just know you get into bad habits. If you've been a leader for a long time, you get into this routine and these certain habits and certain ways of doing things, and you don't step back, or you don't pull back and kind of look in the mirror and go, oh wow, that's how I'm leading meetings. I didn't know that.
Right.
And so it is good to call time out, I think, and look at some things. And if that means going through Generous Leadership Challenge, and it will jog your memory. Maybe it won't be anything new. Maybe it'll just be like, oh yeah, well, I haven't done that in a while. I need that. I need to do that more. So that's good. Very good. How about first time leaders? How about somebody that is listening to this episode and they've always done a great job at their task, and all of a sudden they're a manager for the first time and they got 8 people that report to them. And by the way, they were just promoted. It was like, here you go, here's your team. Right. and nobody, which is how it happens most of the time, right? You get stuck into a manager level position. You're like, here you go, manage these 8 people. We're not going to train you on how to manage people at all, but here you go.
I wonder, I'd love to get in a conversation with you about that too someday, about how managers become managers. Cause
right.
Sometimes you want the leader. Some people have it in them and they don't have to spend 10, 20, 30 years working their way up. And then you promote that one who's been there for 20 years to management, but it's not in them. It's not their skill set. It's not who they're supposed to be. So anyway, what would I say to these first time managers? first time managers, well, managing is different than leading. So they're going to have to go learn up on management skills, right? Because that's a whole nother thing. Leadership is earning the hearts and moving people from A to B, getting them from one point to the next and setting
I
that
like that.
vision and setting that path. And leadership must be authentic. People are really good at detecting BS. And so if that first time manager who's also in a leadership role tries to pretend they are somebody that they're not yet, the people will smell you out, and
Yep.
they will call you out, and either you'll see the crumbling of your team, or some people have seen kind of anarchy, like it kind of undoes behind them. Somebody's poison in the well a little
Mhm.
bit because they
Mhm.
don't believe in you.
Right.
And so I would say do the hard work. And it starts with really a lot of self-awareness and reflection of who are you right now? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? How are you showing up? And then having the courage, being brave to just say, this is who I am. And I'm not necessarily where I want to be yet, but where I want to be, I want all of us to be. So let's get there together. We're going to form together. And so it starts with self-awareness, and the Generous Leadership Challenge and Generous Leadership Paradigm is just fundamentally about using challenging experience to shift who you are, a deep level change, and then using reflection as well. And the power of reflection. And every leader who's stuck in a rut generally cuts reflection for the first, that's the first thing they don't have time for, And it's actually a very, very powerful tool and increases productivity. If we can just do 15, 20 minutes at the end of every day in reflection, and productivity studies have said go way up. So it just
Totally
gives
agree.
this framework for that deeper level change and self-awareness and togetherness and ability to practice authenticity and just be who you are. I can give you an example. Yesterday, I was actually in my team meeting, and we were celebrating the anniversary of two of the people on my team. And I didn't want to do business as normal. I just said, hey, let's take out a piece of paper, because it's been a difficult year for everybody. So let's take out a piece of paper, and I want you to map out some of the milestones and the growth that you experienced this year. And then you're going to share it. And you're going to be in the hot seat. So you're in the hot seat, you share all of this growth and all this, and then we're going to speak into you what we see. And we're going to see how you grew. We're going to also tell you who we see you to be that we don't think you've tapped into yet. And it's this idea of calling out. And there were tears. And I can tell you that actually all of them, they said, but one guy, he was like, I've never been in a workplace where the leader creates the space to just be better.
Nice.
And he said, you have created a refining fire. He said, this is a refining fire, and we're better for it.
Ooh, was that his line? Was that his line, refining fire?
Yes.
I like that. That's pretty good.
It's the power of generous leadership.
I like that. Very good. Thank you for sharing all that. One of I was thinking of a line you said, it's just not in everybody, right, to be a leader. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago that your dad would love this line. He said, hey, Steve, he's like, listen, great soldiers don't necessarily make great lieutenants. You know what I mean? And, and so on that note, just real quickly, how can people better identify that? I think a lot of times superiors make mistakes. They end up promoting great soldiers into the lieutenant role just because they shot the gun well, or they worked the battlefield well, and now all of a sudden they have to lead troops, right? Using that analogy. How do superiors make better decisions there? Any quick advice there? I know it's a big question, but
yeah, I've got one.
Okay.
Two pieces actually. One is your first instinct is going to be how productive and effective are they, but do not do that before you look at EQ. So your emotional intelligence is actually first and foremost the most important thing, because if they cannot connect with other people, they will not lead other people.
Totally agree.
And that's really hard to train. So
it really is. Yeah, it really is.
The second piece of advice I would say, and this is going more towards the framework, a lot of people can pretend that they're confident and that this is a true confidence, not an arrogant confidence. Just, I know who I am and I love you and I want you to come with me. Versus someone who's just talking the talk. And I always listen to the I am statements. So that's identity statements and they don't know it. So it's like I'm not smart enough for this, or I'm a bad mom, or sometimes it's I'm not enough. I don't have enough time. It's a lot of actually Brene Brown stuff too, of the not enough. And so are you bringing somebody into the role who is scarcity minded and has a distorted sense of their identity? Because that's going to trickle down to the rest of the team.
The RiderFlex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.